r/AskReddit. What's the most embarrassing thing you did as a kid that you think about to this day? I was in a small restaurant with my dad and brother, and when I went to the bathroom, I decided to belt out the chorus to Weird Al's The White Stuff in full volume, thinking the bathroom would contain my vocals. I walked out realizing the restaurant was quiet, and when I sat down my dad goes, "What the hell was that?" And when he saw the confusion on my face, he proceeded to explain to me that the entire restaurant heard me. When I was 7, me and my family were visiting Edinburgh and we decided to go to the botanical gardens. While there, I was drawn to these giant lily pads. I suddenly had memories of watching frogs jump on smaller sized lily pads and thought it would be an excellent idea to try and hop onto one to see if it would hold my weight. Safe to say it did not, and it was a long, wet walk back to the car after an embarrassing explanation to the managers of the gardens as to why one of their giant lily pads had a child-shaped hole in it. I pissed myself in primary school in year 5, UK. I was so shy I didn't want to put my hand up and ask to go to the toilet, so I tried to hold it in until home time, which was only a few minutes away, but to no avail. Once the floodgates were open and there was no going back, I decided that the best course of action would be to look as nonchalant as possible, and just maybe no one would notice. So I stood there, silently gazing out of the window and pissing myself, trying to appear as though I didn't have a care in the world. Obvs that was a shit plan of action, and of course everyone fucking noticed. Just when I thought I'd reached the climax of mortification, however, when the whole class was watching me piss myself in stunned silence, the "very sweet" teacher said "Bonnie," and my fucking mouth decided to blurt out, "I'm being sick." The teacher muttered, "You're being sick." And I responded, defiantly, with piss streaming very obviously down my legs and all over my white, or yellow, socks and into my shoes. "Yes. It's not we. I'm being sick. Good times. I feel like I can piss wherever I want now, because if anyone calls me out I'll just bust out the iron-clad 'It's not we. I'm being sick.'" When I was about 5 years old, I shat in the ocean on a crowded beach and watched in horror as the turd floated and then washed ashore, gently rolling in and out with the waves. Just rolling, 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 like a turd in the wind. I shit my pants on the jungle gym at school while waiting for my mom to pick me up. Another kid shouted, "Someone smells like poop," so my logical response was saying whoever smelt it dealt it, and walked away. Oh yeah, I was wearing white soccer shorts. The classic "no you." I told this story years ago on Reddit and got the tag Santa Molester. But one Christmas, when I was about 5/6 years old, I was in line at the mall to sit on Santa's lap. I decided that I wanted to give him money to go towards feeding the reindeer, and since I was 5/6, that money was basically a handful of nickels and dimes, and probably a couple pennies. Not much, maybe like 40 to 50 cents in change. My turn came up, and I sat on Santa's lap, and I tried to hand him the money, but it fell out of my hand and right down onto Santa's crotch. I dove right in there trying to pick up the money with my little boy hands, and Santa hastily said, very hastily, "Oh, ho, ho, it's okay. I'll get it later," and put my on the ground to send me on my way. So, yeah, I molested Santa Claus, and indeed, it still haunts me to this day. That's fing hilarious. Your 5-year-old self had absolutely no shame. I liked this boy in my art class and found out through some mutual friends that he lived a few blocks from me. So instead of just talking to him at school like a sane person would, I decided to get his attention by sneaking out of my house at 4 AM with a big bag of garbage, walking all the way to his house, throwing the garbage all over his lawn, then ringing his doorbell and running back home. The next day at school I asked him if anything weird happened at his house last night. When he said yeah, I revealed that I was the one who pranked his family last night. He just awkwardly said "oh okay," and didn't talk to me for a few months after that. What the fuck was I thinking? This one had me in tears. I was weird af too. I found out this boy I liked lived 2 streets away from me, rural area, so I used to go sit on the road across from his house all casually in case he came out. I would literally bring a book and snacks to try to look like I just happened to enjoy hanging out on that random street. Why? Lol, what would happen if he actually came to talk to you? When I was in kindergarten waiting outside to be picked up by my mom, I saw her approaching. I closed my eyes and ran at her and hugged her. Opened my eyes and I had not aimed correctly as I was hugging the wrong woman. One of my classmates yelled at me to stop hugging their mom. I still think about it. Got to play it off as a power move. She's my mom now, Emily. In 4th grade my mom took me back to the school after hours because she had some PTO meeting or something of the sort. With my boredom peaking, a brilliant idea popped into my head. I claimed that I needed to get something out of my desk in my classroom and was allowed to go grab it, which gave me a few seconds in the classroom all by myself. When I got into the room, I immediately grabbed a piece of paper and wrote "I love you Kelsey" and placed it in Kelsey's desk, the girl I'd had a crush on and had never spoken to, and left. Next day, I get into the classroom and everyone is surrounding Kelsey's desk. They are trying to figure out who wrote the letter, so naturally I play along and try to decipher the handwriting to figure out this mystery crush who couldn't even spell her name right. Worst or best part was that my teacher knew that I was in the room by myself the day before. She never gave me up, but I know she knew. My mom took my brother and I to the circus when I was about 5 or 6. We got slushy drinks during the circus that were pretty frozen. Trying to break up a big piece of ice, I jammed a straw to the bottom of the styrofoam cup, putting a hole in the bottom and getting cherry slushy all over me. I started to cry when everybody was quiet watching the tightrope walker do his thing. Here I'm screaming, covered in red stuff, and a spotlight shines on me. A lot of people gasped, thinking something really bad was happening. They stopped the show for a few minutes. The only thing more red than my shirt was my mom's face. I still think about that from time to time and call my mom to apologize sometimes when I'm drunk. The best part is imagining your mom fielding that 2 AM phone call. "Yes Camacho, I know you're sorry, but go the fuck to bed." When I was about 7 or 8, my dad had custody of me and my sister every other weekend. My mom would drop us off with him Fridays, and he'd always take us to this nice shopping area where we'd go buy some Babysitter's Club books and have dinner. We always parked in the same parking garage, and I always ran ahead 3 floors down the stairwell because I liked to hide underneath the stairs and jump out and yell boo when I would hear my dad and sister start coming down the last flight. Only one time I did it, and it wasn't my dad and my sister at all. It was an elderly couple who must have entered on a lower level ahead of my family. They had to be in their 70s. The woman gasped and clutched her chest, and they almost fell down the stairs. I thought she was having a heart attack. I was mortified. I don't even really remember what I said to them. My dad apologized to them, and then he and my sister proceeded to make fun of me for years. That was almost 30 years ago now, and my face still gets all hot from even thinking about it. Edited to I'm loving reading the responses here. Sounds like a lot of other kids have accidentally scared the elderly in a similar fashion. Thanks so much for helping me feel not so alone with my elder scaring shame. If it makes you feel better, they are probably dead now. Went on my first date at around 13 to Finding Nemo with a girl and her friend when it first came out in theaters. Ate a bunch of popcorn with a huge soda and ended up sitting through the last 30 minutes of the movie having to pee so bad. Being an awkward early teen, I didn't want to get up and awkwardly crawl through the packed movie theater, so just endured the pain. Afterwards, I ran to the packed bathroom and waited in line behind a ton of other men awkwardly for a urinal. Finally, one opened up in my line and I rushed up to it only to realize that the base of it was at my crotch level, so I basically had to pee upwards to get it in the urinal. I had to pee so bad and felt so awkward about the whole situation that I started peeing, but didn't want to be even more weird and looked down at where I was peeing in front of all the other men waiting to piss. So I just kinda stood on my tiptoes and stared at the wall, initially getting it in the bowl, but then becoming unaware of where my pee was going. I ended up spraying the front of the urinal, getting my entire lower front covered in pus, bouncing off the contaminated urinal and soaking the floor and probably the guy's feet next to me. Upon finishing my giant pee, I realized the shit I was in as I had to meet my date and her friend outside the bathroom along with walk past the line of guys waiting to use the urinal behind me. I ended up rapidly pretending to spray myself with water at the sink and then walked out with my sweatshirt on, but with my hands in the front pockets stretching it down, trying to cover up my crotch and upper thighs. I rapidly said bye without a hug and hopped in the front seat of my mom's minivan and rode home smelling like pee. It was awkward. That was a wild ride. I was in high school and asked a teacher if she was a member of the Mile High Club in front of the class. I had never flown before and was not aware that the Mile High Club was for people who had sex in a plane. I was thinking about the memberships where you sit in private rooms to wait for your plane and get free things. Basically wanted to kill myself afterward. Yes, she was attractive. No, she did not answer. I did the same thing, except with my mom, and I quickly realized what I had said and corrected myself. Somehow I'd gotten confused with Club 49, which is a program with Alaska Airlines. I hope she didn't notice. She didn't say anything about it. Edit, with to which. When I was like 7 or 8, I was staying over at a friend's for a sleepover. Had to go to the bathroom late at night, but it was down a super creepy dark corridor and was too spooked. Friend suggested I pee in one of his baby brother's diapers, and I was so desperate that I did. His mom came in to find me holding a soaked diaper with piss all over the floor whilst he was laughing hysterically. 1/10 want to die every time it comes back to me, which is at least twice a week. Similar thing I did as a kid. When my parents got divorced, I lived in an apartment building and I made a friend who lived on the floor below me. She had a small 2-bedroom and her room was on the other end. We had to sneak past her mom's room to go to the bathroom, and it was loud and we were scared. So we used the bowl we had popcorn in and called it our pee bowl for the night. Dumping it out in the morning was mortifying. When I was a stupid kid, I went once to my grandmother with my dad to see her around my birthday. I knew she was going to give me money because she always did, and that's what grandmothers do. I don't come from a wealthy family, and I think I was really looking forward this money because I must have wanted something my 10-ish years old myself considered most valuable than a good time with her, and because I could be a total piece of shit sometimes. Here comes the end of the afternoon, I don't see my gift, so I straightforward go see her, put my hand like a beggar, and ask her for it directly like, where are my 30-year? I must say I have been in quite a lot of cringy/awkward situations in my life, but this one gets the high spot, and I still remember my dad's face and the feeling of utter shame that followed me the next few days. I never talk about it even to this day, because I still feel terribly bad for it 20 years later, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. Me and my friend were playing with some robot dog toy or something, but it died. Went into my parents' room knowing the dresser beside their bed had a package of batteries. We rummaged through the drawer and accidentally stumbled across my parents' sex toy and some dirty magazines. Our immediate idea is to prank my older sister and plant them in her room. Ultimately we decide that would be too mean, since she wasn't a part of the discovery and it wouldn't be funny to her. We grab the batteries and return to our dog toy. Anyways, long story short, my friend thought it would be funny to plant the dildo and mags in my room. I shouldn't have trusted her, but the second I went to the bathroom she snuck them under my bed. I didn't realize for the entire weekend. Monday morning at school, she comes up to me dying of laughter and asks what my parents said. I didn't really get what she meant. Then she spilled the beans. My parents' dildo and porn magazines are under my bed frame. Cue to me running home after school praying to God my parents don't realize what is missing from their bedside drawer. My mom's acting funny when I get home. She asks how my day is, I say fine. She tells me she cleaned my room for me in this really weird tone. My stomach drops, and I'm like fuck, great. My parents think I actively stole and used their dildo. I drop my bag off in my room and look under my bed, and everything is gone. She definitely found the dildo. I was so shy and awkward I just fucking avoided them for as long as possible. I should have just told them my best friend was pranking me, but the idea of talking to my parents about their dildo made me want to die. So I just didn't. So my parents have continued on, to this day, thinking I took their dildo and porn magazines and hid them under my bed. Edit. Thanks for the gold. A little more info for those asking. I'm a girl. My relationship with my parents was awkward for a bit, but unaffected for the most part. My friend definitely was a savage. I intend to tell my parents about it, but they're really shy quiet people and they'll get all embarrassed also. I'm still awkward as hell and don't really want to talk about it. Maybe one day. Growing up, my parents really wanted to make sure I wouldn't smoke. Most of my grandparents passed from smoking related illnesses, so this is understandable. Except they drilled it in my head a little too hard. One day in kindergarten a classmate was absent. The next day she was there, and she was super sad. We asked her what happened, and she said that her grandma died of lung cancer. I told her it served her right. The teacher was not pleased. I apologized the next day as well as a 5-year-old could, but damn if that hasn't stuck with me since. I'd like to think my empathy skills have improved over the years. Glad to see this has sparked some polite discourse in the replies. If it makes you feel any better, I was a militantly anti-smoking kid too. Unfortunately a smoker later in life. My granddad smoked, and I lectured him constantly. The first birthday he had after his stroke, my mum confiscated the card 6-year-old me wrote to him because it read, "Dear Granddad, happy birthday. Are you sorry you smoke now?" I was at a sleepover in middle school. I had gotten new pajamas and everything. I was so excited because I really wanted to be friends with these girls. Woke up in the middle of the night only to find I had wet myself. I had to sneak into her sister's room where we put our bags to find a change of pants. All I had were jeans. When everyone woke up I told them I got cold. My mom told me I smelled when I got in the car to go home. I told her their beagle smelled bad and slept with me all night. Edit. Thanks for all the replies. It's nice to know we are all just a bunch of bedwetters. Had a sleepover at a girl's house where she shared a bedroom with her younger brother with bunk beds. I was probably about 12 or 13 and unfortunately was one of those kids that still had accidents. Middle of the night I realized I had won and completely soaked her brother's mattress. I was mortified and couldn't bring myself to tell her mom, who kinda scared me, so I cleaned myself up and put on my regular clothes. I hid my soaked nightshirt, and being the genius I was, I found clean sheets and flipped the mattress thinking, that will surely hide the evidence. It didn't. He went around telling everyone, and though her and I remained friends, I was never invited to sleep over there again. Edit. Wow. It's kinda awesome to see how many others had similar experiences. Makes it feel just a little less humiliating. Though I'm still not sure how I feel about my first really upvoted comment being about my adolescent lack of bladder control and failed attempt at a literal cover-up lol. I think I was about that age when I visited another country with a friend's family, but I hadn't wet the bed in years and had no idea how one would go about rectifying that situation. It fucking happened twice. My friend's grandparents were separated and lived a few houses down from each other, so we stayed with both of them over the week we were there. The first time I think I had some brilliant plan to hide it, but honestly my memory is fuzzy and I think I just balled up the sheet and stuffed it in a box in a closet .jpg. The second time was at the other grandparents' house. I had a dream that I was laying in an empty bathtub when I realized, in the dream, that I needed to pee. I figured, hey, I'm in a bathtub anyway, what the hell? I wasn't even done peeing when the wetness woke me up. I got up to change my pants and find something to strategically cover the spot so I could sleep the rest of the night, but my friend's mom was still awake. and I had to come clean. Now I get to cringe thinking about someone inevitably finding my shame ball in the closet and her family discussing the culprit, only to discover that they'd accidentally invited a perpetrator into their homes. I was in primary school, year 6 I believe, and I would have been about 11 at the time. One day the deputy principal was having an intense discussion in his classroom during lunch break. He seemed to be acting as a mediator to sort out a conflict between a group uncomfortable looking kids who were all standing around him. I happened to be using one of the computers in the room nearby and listened incuriously as I overheard bits of whatever drama was unfolding between them. To this day I have no fucking idea what came over me, but for some reason I decided it was appropriate to walk over, lean down and slam my palms on the teacher's desk, like I owned the place, say so, what's going on here? And look around at each of them expectantly, like they were actually about to recount the story to me in its entirety. The deputy principal was this stern older guy who was not the type to be fucked with. He just looked at me with the most incredulous look on his face for a couple of seconds and blinked. Wah. None of your business. Everyone stared at me in silence for several seconds and I walked off sheepishly. I still have no idea what came over me that day. This was not normal behavior for me. I still cringe about it occasionally. This reminded me of when I was in 3rd grade. I was the most polite little kid you ever met, and my teacher loved me. One day she was explaining a project to the class, and I have no idea what I was thinking, but I stood up in the middle of her talking, faced the class, and said, blah, blah, blah. Enough talk, let's just get to work. I honestly don't know if I thought the kids would laugh, or if maybe I thought the teacher would think I was smart for not needing so much of an explanation. All I got was shocked stares from the kids and the teacher. Finally my teacher told me to sit down. I did, absolutely mortified, and she finished explaining the project. Afterward we had a little talk about appropriate school behavior. Thank you so much for watching the entire video. I would be so grateful if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel. New videos every day.